Hey, what's up, guys? It's Prem here again. Welcome back to day 3 of Growth Every Day. Today we did a little bit of stretching. It is Sunday, so it is my off day in quotes I put, because even on my off days I like to do a little bit of active recovery. So today that was stretching. As I mentioned before, usually I would go for like a swim or do some sort of cardio, but since I am still coming off that procedure, I'm not allowed to go in the pool for about a week. But I usually would have done that today. But just opted for some stretching outside. It was super warm. I think it was like close to 110 or something today. It was definitely above 100. So I'm in the shaded area of my house and just trying to get some work in. But today I want to discuss the topic of, flexibility and mobility training along with strength and athletic training, and my opinion on the role on how those two kind of intertwine with one another. So first things first, I've always been taught that when you stretch statically, as I'm doing here, holding a stretch, you should be sufficiently warmed up. And I mean literally your muscles should be warm, which is why at the beginning you saw me do some jumping jacks, you saw me do some pulses up and down in the squat position. And the whole reason I'm doing this outside is because it is hot outside and it was easier for my body to get warm. And once I felt like my muscles were warm enough, that's the point where I start stretching, because that's what's going to give you the long-lasting flexibility benefits and really impact your mobility. So I just started off with a basic hamstring stretch, and I went into some hip flexor stuff. I did some lower back work, some glute work. I tried to do like a little bit of a forward split hold, because that's always been like a little mini goal of mine. Just like something I want to be able to do at some point in my life is to do a split. So I was like, what better time to start that than now? So I did a little bit of forward split hold. And then some neck movements and stuff like that. And you'll just see throughout the video just some basic stretching today. I went for about 20 minutes. But yeah, back to the topic. I mean, what role do I think that flexibility training has with athletic training? That's a pretty debated issue in my opinion. I think a lot of things in fitness are pretty debated issues, because the human body is so diverse and so unique to whoever it is that, what works for me might not work for you, but I can offer my advice. And my opinion on this is that, I think flexibility training definitely does have a role in athletic training, but I think you have to do it right. I'm not talking about like, get up in the morning and start stretching when you're cold or when you've just come out of bed, because I don't think that's going to have as much benefit as getting outside into a warm environment, coming out of a shower or a sauna when your muscles are warm, or after a workout, and then doing a little bit of static stretching. I think that would have a much greater benefit for your flexibility and mobility than doing it cold, as I mentioned before. I also think that, if you're really inflexible, and I wouldn't call myself really inflexible, I'm pretty flexible, but I'm not crazy flexible. I definitely have mobility I can unlock, especially in my ankles. I've noticed that my ankles are pretty tight. My soleus and my gastroc, the two muscles in the calves, they're really tightening up on me. Those are the first things that tighten up on me. So, that gives me a little bit of trouble when I squat, gives me a little bit of trouble when I do any sort of cutting, try and put my knee over my toe, So I would say if you're really inflexible, then yes, doing this kind of static stretching that I'm doing here is going to give you benefit, because you have to unlock that mobility first. And static stretching is a great way, I think, to just unlock passive mobility, right? And with these stretches, actually, I'm trying my best to contract the opposing muscle group. So here you can see I'm stretching my left hip flexor. I'm really trying my best to contract my left glute, right? Because if I contract my left glute, I'm going to stretch that hip flexor even more, and it becomes more of an active stretch. That's like a level up from just passively stretching something, right? So, like I said, I won't call myself inflexible, but since I haven't really been doing this kind of stretching, or really haven't been working out consistently for the last couple months, I decided this would be beneficial for me to just regain some of the mobility that I might have lost. In the future, and if you are at a point where, you've been doing this for a while and you feel like you're pretty flexible, like more flexible than the average person, and, you want to take it to the next level, right? I would say that, I'm not saying there's no more benefit for doing this kind of passive static stretching, right? After a workout when you're warm. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you're already at a point where you have unlocked a good amount of mobility, right? Unless you have a goal of, like I do, like doing a split, then I would move into more, how do I put this? Like the more active stretches that I've done in the past couple videos, where I have the weight pulling me into a stretch position and then I'm pulling myself back out. Because now that you have the mobility unlocked, right, you need to teach your body how to be strong in those positions, right? So let's say I want to be able to touch my toes. I can't do that, right? So I would start with the passive stretching when I'm warm, right? And slowly work my way up to being able to touch my toes, right? With my legs straight, my back curved, like perfect form. You don't want no slack. I'm able to touch my toes because my hamstrings, my glutes, and my lower back are flexible. My calves are flexible. So you do your passive stretching, you get there. And then what I would recommend, from there is to then add some weight. Take a bar, right, and start doing some RDLs. Just with the 45-pound bar, because now you're taking yourself into that same stretch position, except the weight's pulling you down, and you have to pull yourself out of that stretch position, including the weight. And you don't even need to add weight at this point, right? You could even just practice the motion of an RDL, getting into the stretch, out of the stretch, into the stretch, out of the stretch, right? And if you can continuously load that, you start with the bar, you add 55, 65, 75, 85 pounds, and you're doing it with good form over the course of months, right? What you're going to notice is that not only are you able to get into those deep stretched hamstring positions and you're in deep stretched glute positions, but you're able to do it and you're strong in that entire range of motion, right? And now I think the final step is, let's say you're like I am, an explosive athlete, and you're doing like a really, really fast hip extension. Let's say you're a football player, you start off very hip flexed in your position, you're down low to the ground. Your hips are flexed, your hamstrings are stretched, your glutes are stretched, right? And you're there, and you need to explode off the line, right? Because of all the training you've done, you A, have the mobility to be in that position in the first place. You B, have the strength to explode out of that position. And C, if you further that and you practice getting in and out of that motion fast and explosively, then that's a extremely good sports-specific stretching application and movement application that you can do to be better at your sport, to be better at what you're trying to do, to be more athletic, So that's level 3 for me, is after you've, kind of built up a good base of strength in that range of motion, if it's applicable to you, start being more specific with it. So like for the football player, do the RDLs, like go down slow, right? Hold that bottom position and then explode up, Practice being in that stretch position and then exploding out of it. So you're in the range, you're strong in the range, that, and now you can be explosive in the range, right? I think those are the levels to it. So I know that was a bit of a long-winded explanation, but that's really the view and the approach that I take to training and flexibility and athleticism, and how those things kind of interact with one another. Because, a lot of studies have shown that if you do weight training, and you do full range of motion weight training, right? Full deep squats, full deep RDLs, full range of motion deadlifts, full range of motion bench press, full range of motion. You could do chest press, you could dumbbell bench press, anything. Any sort of any weight that you're lifting, anything where you're taking the muscle through a full range of motion is a really good flexibility training as well, because you think about it, the weight is pushing you into a stretch position, you're getting out of it. You're already kind of doing level 2, And some people, they will benefit from the passive stretching because they come in the gym and they don't have any mobility in the first place. So they first need to unlock that, and then they can start lifting weights and they feel better, right? So I think that, it's very important to be mobile. It's very important to be flexible. And it's very important to be strong in those positions as well for athletic training. I think that's what separates it from somebody who's just flexible and somebody who's an athlete. Somebody who's just flexible, and not taking away from people who are very flexible, but somebody who's just flexible might not be strong in the entire ranges of motion. But an athlete, while they might not be able to compare to, but they might not have like freak flexibility, like may not be able to do the splits, might not be able to put their head in between their legs or something like that, They'll have a good amount of flexibility necessary for their sport, maybe a little more, and they'll be extremely strong and explosive in those positions, because that's what's necessary for you to succeed in your athletic endeavors, right? And at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to, is specificity. You build a base, you work on that base, and then you specify that base. You unlock your mobility, you build strength in that range of motion that you have now unlocked, and then you specify it to whatever your sport is. If you're the football player, you're explosive. You know what I mean? You're an explosive athlete in general. You work on that explosiveness in and out of that movement. If you really don't care about being explosive, let's just say you're working on hypertrophy and you need to get a deeper squat, and you couldn't even squat below parallel. First, you do the passive stretches, get down, make sure you can squat below parallel with body weight. Then add a bar, and for hypertrophy training, you don't need to go crazy heavy because it's not strength training, right? You don't need to be explosive out of the hole, if you don't want to be, right? You just need to be strong within that range of motion. So you could really only stop at level 2 there because that is specific for what you're trying to do. So it all depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. But I would not neglect flexibility and mobility because it is important not only for improving your athleticism, but also just for daily life. Moving around, being able to get in and up out of chairs, in and up out of positions. Just yesterday, I dropped something on the floor and I had like a big basket in my hands, right? So I had like this big basket in my left hand, right? And I was holding it up against my chest and I dropped my phone on the floor, right? And if I didn't have the flexibility in my quads and I didn't have the patellar tendon strength to put my knee over my toe, right? And I didn't have the flexibility in my glutes, to go into deep hip flexion, I wouldn't have been able to squat down and pick up my phone, without having to like drop the bag. And I had no pain when I did it either. I was able to just squat down, pick up my phone, no pain, get up, go about my day. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to do it, So I think flexibility and mobility is just great for just living your daily life. But yep, looks like I'm about to wrap it up here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. This is day 3. Like I said, if you're enjoying these kinds of videos, please leave it, your comments and suggestions down in the comment section below. I really appreciate any sort of feedback that you guys can give me. I'm really having fun with this series, guys. Seriously, like I was really looking forward to recording this video today and voicing it over. It's nice. It really is fun. So hopefully I'll have another video up tomorrow, and I really appreciate every single one of you for tuning in and listening to me rant for another 12 minutes today. So thank you guys, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.